Everything you own today was once an impossible dream for prehistoric humans. No house, no electricity, not even a guarantee that you would survive until tomorrow. Every day was a battle for survival. Yet despite that, humans managed to survive, and they took the first step in the history of civilization. So what was life like? Sleep. Sleep was not a time for rest. It was the most dangerous part of the day. At night, predators came out in search of food. That is why people chose their sleeping place carefully, sometimes inside caves, sometimes beneath rock overhangs, and sometimes they built simple shelters from branches and animal hides. But no place was completely safe. Any sound in the darkness could mean a predator was approaching. That is why they slept in groups, while one person stayed awake to keep watch. Fire was their first line of defense. Most animals feared the flames, but if the fire went out, the danger increased immediately. Sleep itself was not long because any movement or sound could wake everyone. Waking up with the first light of the sun, a new day began. No one stayed sitting because time meant survival. The first task was to search for food and water. The body had used up its energy during the night. There was no refrigerator with ready-made food and no nearby store. Every bite had to be earned through effort. Finding food was never guaranteed. On some days, they had a successful hunt. On other days, they found nothing. Their diet depended on the environment. If they lived near forests, they gathered berries, mushrooms, roots, and wild fruits. If they lived near rivers, they caught fish. On open plains, they relied on hunting animals. They ate deer, rabbits, birds, and sometimes enormous animals such as mammoths in certain regions. But hunting was not a daily success. That is why they used every part of the animal: the meat for food, the hide for clothing, the bones for making tools, and the tendons for making ropes. Nothing was wasted. Water. Water was more important than food, but obtaining it was not easy. They drank from rivers and springs, and sometimes from rainwater, but those same places were also gathering spots for predators. That is why going to drink water was risky. They knew nothing about germs or bacteria, so drinking contaminated water could cause deadly diseases. Hunting was not an act of heroism. It was a risk that could end in death. At first, humans made spears from wood. Then they added sharp stone tips, and after thousands of years, more advanced spears appeared. Hunting depended on cooperation. One group chased the animal, another group blocked its escape. Sometimes they drove animals toward cliffs, making them easier to kill. But things did not always go as planned. Many hunters suffered serious injuries, and some never returned. Tools. At first, tools were nothing more than stones, but over time, they learned how to shape them. They made knives, spearheads, and stone axes. They also used bones to make needles and hooks and hunting tools. These simple tools completely changed human life. Hunting became easier, cutting wood became faster, and making clothes became more precise. Fire was the greatest discovery of that time. Before it, people ate much of their food raw. Afterward, they began cooking. Cooking made meat easier to digest and greatly reduced disease. Fire also provided warmth during winter, kept predators away, and gave light during the night. But starting a fire was not easy. It required time and effort. That is why they kept it burning continuously, because losing it meant returning to darkness and cold. Clothing was not for fashion. Its only purpose was protection. At first, they wore animal hides just as they were, but they were heavy, stiff, and difficult to move in. Over time, they learned to clean the hides, dry them, and tan them using natural materials. Then they used animal bones as needles, made thread from animal tendons, and began sewing clothing. In colder regions, they wore several layers. In warmer regions, their clothing was much lighter. Shelters. Not all people lived in caves. Caves were the best option, but they did not exist everywhere. So people built temporary shelters. They used branches, leaves, animal hides, and sometimes the bones of massive animals, especially mammoth bones. These shelters were simple, but they protected against the wind and reduced the impact of rain. As people moved from one place to another, they left them behind. Communication. At the beginning of human life, there was no language like the ones we know today. People relied on gestures, hand movements, facial expressions, and different sounds. Every sound had a meaning. One sound warned of danger, another called the group together, and another was used during hunting. Over thousands of years, those sounds developed into words. Then the first languages began to appear. Childhood was not long. Children started learning from a very young age. They watched the adults and imitated them. They learned how to use fire, gather plants, and make tools. As they grew older, they joined hunting trips or helped carry food. Every member of the group had a role, women and men. For a long time, it was believed that only men hunted and women only gathered food. But recent discoveries have revealed a more complex picture. In some groups, women also took part in hunting, especially when necessary. Everyone worked together because survival was everyone's responsibility. Disease. Today, a small wound may heal within days, but back then, it could become a death sentence. There were no medicines, no antibiotics, no surgery. Any infection could spread quickly. An animal bite could be fatal. Even a broken bone could leave a person helpless for a long time if they survived at all. Teeth. Teeth were a serious problem. There were no dentists, no toothpaste, no toothbrushes. When a tooth decayed, the pain continued. In some cases, the infection spread to other parts of the body and ended in death. Hygiene depended on water. If there was a river, they washed. If there wasn't, many days could pass without bathing. The goal was not only personal cleanliness, but also getting rid of parasites and insects, which caused many diseases. Entertainment. Despite the harshness of life, prehistoric humans still found ways to enjoy themselves. After the hunt, the group gathered around the fire. They talked, danced, and sang. They also used sticks and stones to create rhythms similar to drums. These moments strengthened the bonds between them. Art. Thousands of years before paper existed, humans began to draw, but not on paper. They drew on the walls of caves. They painted animals and hunters and scenes from their daily lives. They used charcoal, clay, and pigments made from rocks. Many of these paintings still exist today. They are considered among the oldest forms of art in human history. Burial and beliefs. As time passed, people began to care for their dead. They no longer left bodies out in the open. Instead, they buried them, sometimes placing tools or food beside them. Although we still do not fully understand their beliefs. Predators. Humans were not the strongest creatures. They were also prey. They faced wolves, bears, big cats, hyenas, and cave lions. These animals were faster and stronger, but humans possessed something they did not: intelligence, cooperation, and the ability to make tools. These advantages changed the balance of power. Weather. The weather was another enemy. During winter, extreme cold could wipe out an entire group. During summer, water sources could dry up. Storms, floods, and natural wildfires often forced people to abandon their shelters and search for new places to live. Life expectancy. Average life expectancy was much lower than it is today, not because people aged faster, but because dangers were everywhere. Hunting, starvation, and predators all reduced the chances of survival. But those who survived these dangers could still live for many decades. The life of prehistoric humans may seem incredibly harsh, but the truth is, everything we have today began there. The first tool, the first fire, the first shelter, and the first cooperation between people. Every civilization on Earth owes something to those early humans who spent thousands of years struggling against nature so future generations could have a better life.